Hi, welcome to Pay It Forward. I realised the other day it's been so long since I added to my pincushion collection. So today I have for you a very new pincushion design. It's a gorgeous little comfy armchair. I've wanted to make one of these for so long. My eldest daughter just happened to send me a beautiful pack of fat quarters this week. This little print was in it and all I could see was little armchair. So there you go. It was born from that. I've had the best couple of days designing and putting this one together for you all. I know you're going to love it. It's so simple. It's going to use all those gorgeous fat quarters that you've got stashed away. And I know I can already see all of your minds ticking over. You're seeing all of the colours and designs, aren't you, of what you can make this in. Imagine the florals and the prints. Oh, they should come with a warning because they're very, very addictive. I would easily make many more of these and just line them up on my windowsill. I don't have time, so I'm going to just enjoy seeing all of yours. So your free pattern is, the link is down below in the description box. You can print out your free pattern templates. Do set your printer to be printing at actual size or perhaps A4. Always communicate with me through the comments and I can help you out with that printing. And there is a scale measurement line on each of those pattern pages to help you make sure you're printing out. You want your pattern pieces to be absolutely spot on. I always include all the seam allowances within my patterns, so we're all set and ready to go. So let's get busy making the first of what I hope will be many little comfy armchairs. Okay, so let's start by having a look at what we're going to need to make our little armchair pincushion. Now for the base of our pincushion, we're going to be using a piece of a scourer sponge. Now I use these because they're universally available. You can buy them all over the world. Yours are probably different colours than mine here, but they have a foam top and a scourer pad on the bottom. So they're usually 7 centimetres wide and they're different lengths. You will also find them in larger sizes and you can cut them to size. So the size that we're after is a 7 centimetre by 7 centimetre square. So you're going to need one square that has the scourer base on it. That's for our base. It makes it nice and firm. And then the second one we cut 7 by 7 also, but you can see that I've removed the scourer base. So that's for the top cushion of your armchair because we need it to be a little bit more narrow. This scourer piece does just peel off very easily. Just peel it off, and then once you've peeled it off, then cut your piece, because it does, if you cut your piece with the scourer on it and then peel it off, you may distort it. So I've got my two exact 7 by 7 squares there. That's the basis of our whole chair. And then we have our back section. So I'm making this very, very classic out of a beautiful fabric. My eldest daughter sent me a gorgeous little package of fat quarters the other day, just with a lovely little I love you message on it, and this was in there, and I thought it was absolutely perfect for an armchair, so we're going to go with that. So it is just a quilting cotton, and I have interfaced it with my Fusible medium weight interfacing, so that's nice and strong. So you've got your two pieces there, and then we have our pieces that actually are going to cover our cushions and our base. Now they're both cut the same, but you'll find on your pattern template that you've got two markings. One is longer than the other. So your armchair base, the cover that you're cutting for that one, you need to make the marking of where we stitch down to, because we fold this in and stitch to make corners. So you need to, on your armchair base, you put your marks at the side here, and you can see that that's what I've done. This is for the base. So it tells me how far I need to stitch down. And then it is the shorter one for your second piece, which is going to cover your cushion top. So I hope that's clear to you. You'll see as we go along how we put those together. So they are also interfaced with that fusible interfacing. And then we have the supports that go in the middle of these pieces. Now, I'm using a fusible foam, which I absolutely love. It's only about 3 to 4 millimeters thick. It's fusible on one side, and we have a piece for the center and a piece for the sides there, and they're the pieces that are going to wrap around the back of those cushion pieces, and it just gives it a little bit of volume and more strength and hold. We also have to cut another one of these, but in Mattboard, and that's what's going to hold the back. We slip that up the back, and it's going to keep our armchair nice and straight. So this is just picture framing Mattboard, and it's very, very strong. If you haven't got or can't find fusible foam, you can use some wadding or a couple of layers of felt, but we do need some volume in there for sure. If you haven't tried this fusible foam, I really recommend it. It's absolutely fabulous for so many things. So then we're going to need our back cushion, because we're going to be adding a back padded cushion. So we've got our two pieces there. Again, they are interfaced in the same fabric. You'll also notice that when I'm cutting from a pattern fabric that has a directional print like that, I'm very careful where I lay my pattern pieces so that everything is going to be lined up on the chair. So that's my back cushion piece, and I've also got, in this case, we're going to have two pieces of foam, so one for each side. We're also going to be adding a little bit of polyester filling into that back cushion to plump it out. We're going to be pulling through like some little stud pulls through for a padded effect. You can trim the base of your chair at the bottom, and it's a really lovely effect. You can use any kind of braid or lace. I'm going to use a little bit of lace. It's very, very see-through because I still want to be able to see my fabric through it, but it is a really nice finish you'll see at the end. And of course, we want to add a tiny little throw cushion. So again, this is just from a little fat quarter that I got from my daughter, and it goes beautifully with this one. And so we've got our cushion front, and then we've got two cushion backs for an envelope back. It's a very simple little design, but it makes a really cute little throw cushion with a little bit of detail to it. On the base of this one, once we've covered it, we're going to cover it with a piece of felt with interfacing applied. You've got your template there to tell you how large to cut that. We're going to be stitching around that with some Perle thread. I've got my brown there ready to go. I've got my extra strong threads ready to go also. Now this is optional. I put mine up on little foot pegs, and they are just little push pins. They come in all sorts of colours. I'm going to be using the clear, and I'm just going to put one in each corner, and it just elevates the chair just a little. Very easy to use. It gives it a really retro sort of a look. You don't have to add the little foot pegs. You can sit it straight on the tabletop and it will work just as well. You could alternatively glue 4 little beads on the base. There's all sorts of things you could use to make little feet for that. And the other thing we will be needing is a little bit of hot glue. So have your hot glue gun ready to go. So we're going to start with our back pieces, and we are going to create that back wrap section. So let me move everything else out the way. And so our two pieces here, so only on one of them you can see that the lines are drawn in. You've also got your marks at the bottom. Make sure you transfer all of your marks when you're making this little project. What we're going to do first of all is we're going to fuse into place right in the center, leaving that space all the way around. We're going to fuse those pieces into place on that, what will be the back section. With a hot iron and a protective cloth, get them fused into place, and then we will come back and put that one together. Now once you've got your fusible foam pressed into place there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put right sides together with these two back pieces. So you want to make sure that they're all beautifully lined up. Now you've got marks on your pattern piece down the bottom here, and where we're going to be sewing, we're going to get those all clipped in together to make sure everything is lined up. And you want to sew a 4mm seam allowance just from this mark and all the way around the top here. Make sure you reinforce your corners right around the top, round to the other mark on the other side. The base here where it's open, that's where we're going to turn this one through. So stay to your 4mm seam allowance so that everything fits when we put everything together. And as I said, if you back and forth on your corners, they're going to turn through much better, and also back and forth on your start and finish. So I've got that one all stitched. Now before we turn it through, a couple of key things that we do. First of all, we have to snip right into those corners so that they'll turn through well. So just a clip right in, don't snip into your stitching. And then I just take the corners off of everything. So down here and here. And then we just turn this one through. You'll find even with that foam, it turns through really well, and we're going to push out all of those seams nice and flat. I've used my knitting needle to push out all of those corners. Remember, this is the front arm of your chair and this is the top line. So everything needs to be nice and beautifully curved there. So then I've gone ahead and given it a press. As I've done that, you can see I've pressed that opening under. So just the same 4mm seam allowance, so that's going to close up beautifully. We're going to be slipping this piece in between those layers, so that's going to give us that nice firm back. But before we do that, we need to stitch in our lines which run from the top corner here to the marks that you've got. You've got those 2 more marks on your pattern pieces, and I just like to pop a pin in there so I know exactly where I'm going. So a pin in each side, right on those marks. You could even draw a line in if you want with a heat erasable marker from that corner to that point, if it helps you follow that, because you can press it afterwards and remove those marks. We're just going to stitch through all of the layers all the way down. There will still be enough room for us to add this one. So both sides. I've now got those side pieces stitched so they'll be able to fold in. So what we've got now is a little pocket here, and the back of your chair is the side that doesn't have the foam fused to it, and that's where we're going to slip this little mat board piece up inside. You'll find that will slot in beautifully. It's why you need to pay particular attention to your seams so that everything fits. And now we've got a really solid little back to our chair, and our foam is at the front. So this section here, if you can tuck it under the machine, you can just go ahead, pop that under the machine and just stitch along the very edge there to close that up. Or you could sew it with just a slip stitch, or even just a tiny little blanket stitch will close that opening well. So I'm just going to take mine to the machine and stitch that across, and we'll move on to the next step. So that has my completed little chair back and arm surround all done. And the best part about this pattern is the majority of it is all sewn on the machine, but it looks like such an intricate little piece. It makes them great for sewing for online selling and market product as well. So remember that. So you can see that's closed up there across the base there, and it's going to be a very, very neat finish all the way around. So we can put that one aside. Let's go ahead and make our covers for our base and our top cushion. So of course our longer one with our longer section here is going to be for our base that has our scourer still attached. We're just going to put right sides together on the corners. You can see there, fold those in, and we're going to stitch that same 4 to 5mm seam allowance. You can go to a 5mm if that suits, because these are foam and they can be squashed in. And you do that on every corner. So we're going to end up with a little box shape. And we do the same with the one for the top cushion, which is just a little more shallow. Do make sure they're all lined up well and do the same thing, stitch down. I make sure again that you're back and forth on your start and finish. So here we go, I've got both of those done and I've turned them through. You want to make sure you've really pushed those points out on every corner and really roll out those seams because we want nice squared edges. So now we're simply going to take our foam piece and we're going to drop it in. So on the base piece, we want the little scrubber piece at the bottom because it makes it nice and strong. And you'll find if you've stayed with your seam allowances, it's just going to slot in really well. You want to manipulate it so that it's exactly on those corners. Want a nice square little base. You should check that from the top and make sure you haven't got it twisted. And once you have it all in place and it's all nicely squared, we're then going to go with our hot glue gun and we're going to fold the edges under. We're just going to hot glue them down. It's just like wrapping a present. So you're going to do 2 side pieces first, just some hot glue and down. You want to make sure that this is all nice and tight and firm. As you fold those 2 over, you can go ahead and snip the corners just as you would when you were wrapping a present to give you more room to fold that section over and keep it all nice and flat. So with this one, we're going to be adding the felt base on top. So do keep it nice and flat. We're going to be adding that felt base. We're going to be stitching around it. With this one, you're going to go ahead and do the same thing. I've popped that one in. That's your top cushion. It's going to be folded in, hot glued into place, nice and firm all the way around. Again, cut your diagonals in to fold it in. I'll show you what it looks like when I've glued it. And this one, there'll be some foam exposed. That's absolutely fine because we're going to be hot gluing this one onto the other one. So this under here is never going to be seen. So let me get them glued up for you and I'll show you exactly how they look when they're done. So here I've got my 2 beautifully wrapped little cushions. So you see, it's just about snipping that diagonal as you fold it in, just as I said, just like you would a present. So that's our base with that scourer on the bottom. Everything's lined up and it's a good strong base, and the same with the other cushion, just all folded in nice and neat, watching if you're using directionals like I am that everything's nicely centered. They will sit on top of each other and our chair will wrap around it. So you can see our chair starting to come together. So what we need to do next is, as I said, we'll be hot gluing this one to there, but for this one we want to add that base piece. Now I have my felt base piece covered in clear craft glue, so any clear craft fabric glue will work. We're going to apply it to the base here. It's just liberally coated. You might also notice I've just taken the very corners off of each corner there just to round it off around that edge, and we're just going to lay that one in place right over the top and make sure that everything is nicely covered. It does give it a brilliant base and very professional if you're going to be selling these. And we're just going to push that down. We're going to let that dry completely before we come back, and we're going to be sewing a blanket applique stitch all the way around the outside edge for a really lovely professional finish there. The glue is dried on my base now, and I have my needle threaded with my 8-ply Perle thread in a colour that will suit, and we're going to sew that blanket applique stitch around the base there just to join these 2 edges together, give it a really nice professional finish. I always start somewhere on the sides, not the front, so I'm just going to take my needle initially and come in underneath. So I'm just going to come out right on the edge there, pull that one through, and my knot's going to be nicely hidden between those layers. I can tuck that right in there. So it's a blanket applique stitch as usual, only we're doing it in a three-dimensional way. So I'm going to take my needle in and I'm going to come out, basically where I started there, right on the edge. And I'm bringing my needle out through the loop. You see that coming through the loop? Pulling that in together. So we're pulling these edges together. Travel a little way along through all the layers. Keep your stitches nice and even and quite small. Coming out again on the edge of the fabric and bringing my needle out through the loop. I do have videos on my basic stitches. You'll find them in my playlist. There, now that's brought those edges together. Continue along. Right on that edge. And again through that loop. And what that's doing is it's creating a binding across, which is going to continue all the way around that little base shape. There you can see that finished result is beautiful and neat and tidy, and it's really bound that edge lovely, so we're going to see that there. Now, I am adding the little foot pegs, which are just my push pins, which come in so many different colours. You can do a few things to these push pins. If you really want to blend them to your project, you could use a little bit of your clear craft glue or PVA glue, and you could thread wrap in the colour to match these, so the little legs are the same colour. You could definitely do that. You could use little wooden beads to stick on the base, or you can just put this one together and sit it flat on the table. It works just as well. So if you are going to be adding your little push pins, just drop your awl in the corners. Just check first to see exactly where they will sit. You want them sitting right on each corner. And I've just gone ahead with my awl and made a nice hole there going in as deep as the pin will go in. Ready to add those. We will just be adding a little bit of clear craft glue as we pop those in, but we're not going to do that right now. But what I am going to show you is once they are all in, I have another option for you to make with this chair, and that is if we flip that one over, you can actually make a matching footstool ottoman for your chair. So you can see just how cute that would be. And of course, it's more room for pins and they sit nicely together. You could always change the size of your footstool, but I think those two next to each other would look absolutely fabulous. You could even treat it as like a little soft coffee table. Put some little items on top. So many options with this very, very simple pattern. What we're going to do now though is we're going to make that back studded cushion. So now let's have a look at making our back padded cushion that sits on the back of the chair. So we've got your two pieces, and remember we had two filler pieces cut. I've pressed those into place, leaving a space all the way around. So they should be nice and central there. They're pressed into place. You've got marks on the base of your pattern piece, and we're going to put those right sides together just as we did with the other pieces. Line them all up, and we're going to sew from this mark all the way around, back to this mark, and back and forth on the start and finish. Again, as we did with the other pieces, we're going to just trim those corners off before we turn it through and push all of those seams out. You can see there that I've turned that one through, and I have, as before, given it a press. So I've got a nice rounded top there for my cushion. As I've done that, I've also turned that opening under, just that little bit within that seam allowance. So what we've got here is a space in between those two pieces of foam. We're going to add some filling because we want to plump this out a little bit. But what we're going for is a flat filled shape. So we don't want to blow it out into a little ball. So we'll want to keep everything nice and flat. and just give that back cushion a nice little bit of volume while keeping it in its shape. So you can see there that I'm just gently tucking it in around the edges, right the way around. Because I've already got my seam edges turned under, it's going to make it very easy for closing that up. It's just about giving it enough volume for us to do a few simple pull-in stitches that's going to create that little studded look, like a little studded sofa back. Just going to add a little bit more. And if you have your wool felting needle ready, that's going to be handy, just to be able to tuck all those fibres in there and also keep it all nice and flat. So it's nice and firm because of that foam either side, and when we pull it in, it's going to have that nice little bounce around those little stitches that we're going to make. So I'm just going to go ahead and I will just simply close that opening. If you can tuck it under the machine, you could do it on the machine. I'm just going to slip stitch it closed using just a simple ladder closing stitch, or you could just do, as I said before, a very small blanket stitch there. Now once you have that opening closed there, I'll slip stitch that closed, you're ready to add your little pull-in marks. And I have given you a guide on your pattern template, but you can put any amount in of little studs, button studs as you like. You could also incorporate a bead in that and pull it in if you want a little bit more colour. I'm actually just going to use a double strand of 8-ply Perle thread. Choose your best side, so the side of the cushion that looks the best and is lined up best. And we've got those marks there. All I'm going to do is come in directly from behind with my needle at about that mark, and I'm going to come out just one side of the mark. I'm going to leave my tail ends hanging. I'm going to travel across just a little stitch and come out at the back again, just one side of it. And then I'm just simply going to tie that off. Now the back you're not going to see. I'm actually going to drop a little bit of hot glue in place so that we don't see the back of that. It will be glued to the back of the chair. Now I've really pulled that in and you can see it's given that nice little bounce there at the side. So all I need to do is pull that super tight, knot that off about 3 times, snip those thread ends. The back of that will not be seen. So just repeat that with each of those marks and you'll get a nice little padded effect. And here I have my beautiful little studded back cushion. Now you can use, if you can find some doll buttons, they are very, very tiny. I've got some in black, but I didn't want to add black to this project. If I'd have had anything in the brown tones, I would have used them. So a tiny doll button, pulled through and knotted at the back the same, would actually give you that button stud. Like I said, you could also incorporate a little bead if you wanted to. So now we've got all of our pieces, let's put this chair together. Okay, so now let's have a look at making a final little piece, which is we're going to put together a little cushion, a little throw cushion for our chair. Now it's a very tiny cushion. What you don't want to do is make a cushion that's too big for this chair, because you don't want to swamp it and you want to keep the proportions right. If your cushion is very small, it makes everything look more real. So the first thing I've done is on 2 of the long edges of your envelope back for your cushion, I've just pressed the edge under and sewn very close to the edge to create 2 tiny little seams. So we're actually going to put it together like a cushion. So now we're going to put right sides together and line up those edges with the front. So right sides together, crossing those 2 over the top of each other with those hemmed edges to the middle, and that's going to create a little envelope back, and we're going to be able to turn it through and stuff it through that opening. So just as we would make a normal size envelope cushion. So now we just need to stitch all the way around the outside, really back and forth over those joins there. All the way around, same here, back and forth over these joins, and we can turn through the center there. I always do extra stitches as I do my corners, and do try and keep this seam allowance very, very small, probably only about 3 millimeters if you can. So I'm going to get that one stitched up, then turned through. Give that one a press once you've turned it through. Now you can go ahead and you could just fill this one up and use that as your cushion as it is. And of course you could decorate the front of that cushion any way you like, and you could do that before you assemble it. You could add little tassels to the corners, but what I'm going to do is a simple thing that gives you detailing, and it's very nice and clean and crisp. We know by now that I like everything clean and tidy, and I'm actually going for this fabric because it gives it kind of a woven look anyway. It's a very rustic look I'm going for with my chair. So now I'm going to sew around the edge on the inside. I'm going to sew through all of the layers. I'm going to do a perfect little square, probably about 6 millimeters in, and that gives me a little ruffle around the outside. It's a little straight ruffle. Then when we add our filling, that section stays flat and the rest pops out from the middle. I'm going to stitch that in place, and then we're going to add a little bit of filling. You can see there that line of stitching around there. It's just like top stitching. So now I've still got that envelope back open, and I can just tuck just as much filling in there as I like. You can get in both sides through that envelope back and get all of that filling up into those corners. Forceps are best for this. And you'll see that it will fill out and leave this section flat. That gives it a really nice little decorative edge. You can fill it as full as you like. And that envelope back, I don't even close up with any sewing because it really does cover it all. It's not like this cushion's going to be used. And that just gives my cushion that beautiful little edge. It's a lovely little effect. I don't stitch that opening, but if you want to add a couple of stitches to hold that closed, you can go ahead and do that. And that is perfect. It would look absolutely lovely with a little bit of embroidery on there if you're going for a colourful look. So that is my little cushion completed. You could of course make all sorts. Little stuffed yo-yos, fabric yo-yos with filling inside, secured with a button in the centre. Makes a lovely little round cushion of about the same size. You can do all sorts. You could do the little rolled cushions. I'm sure you're going to come up with many, many ideas. I have all of my pieces here ready, and we're going to put this chair together. So we start with our base piece, and as I said, we haven't put our feet on it yet. We're not going to be doing that just yet. We do that last. We've got our back section, and remember we've got our foam section facing forward, and these are going to wrap around here. Now I'm going to hot glue this into place, and I only glue it to the base piece because I like to sit my second piece on afterwards. The reason for that is if it's only glued at the base, I get a little bit of pull out on the sides here that gives it a little bit of a winged effect, which is really, really nice. So we're also going to be adding that binding of lace around the base, which is also going to hold this all in nice and flat. So first up, what we're going to do is we're going to take the back section here, and we're going to hot glue here, and we're going to hot glue that in right across the center, and that's where you start. So once you've got that one in nicely glued, you can then go ahead and hot glue the side. Now you don't want to be coming too far up here with your glue. We don't want any visible glue, and then we will glue and fold in one side and then do the same with the other. And I find it best that you add your glue to the base piece, not this section. it will be way less visible. And you want to hold that all into place while that glue cools. Okay, so that has my first section hot glued into place, and it's really, really strong. The main thing to remember is that you keep it all lined up. So the best way to do it is flat on your table as you bring those in, and you'll line them all up. So that's nicely cooled and that's all set. Now you've got your next piece, which is your inside cushion that sits on top. Now you could just pop it in there. You don't need to hot glue it in place. You can see how we've got that happening there. However, when you're putting your pins in and out, I just think it's a great idea to hot glue it in, and this is it's working as one whole piece. So I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue on the base there. Again, make sure nothing is showing at the front, and glue that one in. And that has my top cushion glued into place. Now I'm not showing you the gluing on camera because quite frankly, you've got to work so quick with hot glue and I don't want to get it into the wrong place. This is a really simple thing to do. The things you just have to remember is don't bring your hot glue out too close to the edges. So when I glued the bottom of this one, I only glued the center like this, dropped it into place. So we're not getting any glue spillage anywhere. So now we can see that little chair's coming together. See what I meant about those sides winging out? It looks absolutely fabulous. Once we put our lace trim or our braid trim on there, which will hold those edges, it's going to hold itself beautifully. So again, with the back cushion, you could just pop it there in place and have it loose. I like to add just a little bit of hot glue across the top section. I don't glue the base in like that because then it will pull out at the front. I like to glue the top section here, so it's going to sit nice and straight for me. So I will just apply some hot glue across here and get that one into place. There we go, that has my back cushion in place there. You can see all coming together. No glue showing on any side. So the next step is to add our braid for the base. And as I said, this does help to make the whole front section look nice and clean and tidy, adds a little bit of decoration, and it'll hold it at the base there for you. So I've just pinned my lace at the back just to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to be hot gluing this, but very, very gently. I don't want to use much hot glue. You can use clear craft glue for this if you wish, but you'll need to pin it and then leave it to sit there and dry. So you can do it either way. I may even consider doing the clear craft glue. I'll have a little play with it first, but what I'm going to do either way, I'm going to apply my glue to the base and then I'm going to stretch and pull that lace around so that it's nice and tight, and particularly on this front section, so it's really holding those edges together. You can see there. Just going to adhere that all the way around and have your join at the back there. And I think I can probably achieve that with my clear craft glue and pin it and let it dry. So I may go with that. So I'm just going to get that trim into place. And so here I am back with my completed chair. Now I ended up using just my clear craft glue to add that lace because there's not much substance to the lace and I didn't want the glue showing through. So just a smear of clear craft glue all the way around there has popped that on really well, and it's lovely and neat. And I've gone ahead and done the same thing. I've dipped those little push pins, their little points, dipped them in clear craft glue and taken them straight in the base there, and they're nice and solid now. You'll also see that I wrapped around each of them the same coloured thread I've been using throughout, my extra strong thread, but you could use any thread there to wrap around, and it just brings in the colour, and it really is a great way to lift it off the ground. It does give it more of a sort of a retro look, but this chair does look equally as good sitting just flat on the table. And also, if you don't want to have a lace trim, some people just don't like lace or they don't like sort of frilly fussy things, you can just create yourself a binding of the same fabric to wrap around there. and glue it on in the same way, but it really does help bring those sides in together. If you wanted to keep it all self-coloured, that is the way to do it. So we've got our little cushion that just tucks in there absolutely beautifully, and there are a couple of things that I've got already on my channel that you could add. So I have a gorgeous little teddy from my Mama series, my Mama and Baby series, and I think that is just absolutely too sweet. Alternatively, you could add just a tiny bear in the corner, made up in the right colours, of course. I can imagine all sorts of beautiful florals and different really wacky prints as well there. So we've got little bear, he's on a bag charm, so the pattern is there for him. Or you could also add a beautiful little puppy. We've even got a kitty, but I think kitty would look a little bit out of scale. But little puppy could cuddle up in there as well, or even hang on the edge over the outside. Cheeky puppy. Tuck you in there. All sorts of things you could do, but you can imagine these made up to on sell and selling at craft markets and online. Of course, they're meant for pins. Not that I would ever put pins in mine. I'm funny like that, but you've got a lot of options for where you can add your pins. You put needles at the top and pins in the base. It's very, very stable. I won't use it as a pin cushion. I just love the look of it. But if I ever were choosing something for a pin cushion, this would be it, because I like something nice, quite big and stable, and lots of room to pop them in. I'm very excited for what you do with this one. I would more than happily back up now and make another 3 of these, one after the other, because I've just got so many visions in my head of prints, and I've got so many fat quarters that I would love to do. Another idea for these is you could make it quite a patchwork chair using your fat quarters all within the same story of colours, and you could make every single pattern piece a different colour and a different print, and you get a gorgeous patchwork chair, and you could, you know, coordinate the trim accordingly and those little feet. So I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. As I said, I've been looking forward to making this one for ages. It was just the perfect fabric sent to me by my daughter. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing yours. So I have little bear cuddled up on my chair. I wonder what you're going to put on yours. I'm looking forward to your designs. You can show them to me and share them with everybody on our Facebook page. Share your Lisa Pay creations and pay it forward. Anything that you make from my patterns you can share on there. You can also see what everybody else is doing. And we're a big friendly bunch, so come and join us. I'll put that link down below. If you would like to step up and create some beautiful art dolls, you can always join me in my masterclass. I'll also put that link down there below as well. Now, anybody wanting to speak to me privately, if you really want to get my attention, just message me, direct message me on Instagram. Now that's across your screen there, and you can see that address. A lot of you chat to me on Instagram, and I absolutely love it. It's just the easiest way to get my attention straight away, all of you. So, and I do love to hear from you all. I would also love to hear from you all in the comments. We don't want to neglect this pincushion collection, because I'm really excited now after making this one. I want to add to it some more. Anything you would like to see in a pincushion, just let me know, because I do love a design challenge, and I do like these really different sort of projects. So I hope you all do too. So look, everybody, have a fantastic creative week. Everybody keep sharing your beauties amongst your friends and out in your wider community through your social media platforms, and let's bring more people in to share the joy and fun we have here. So stay safe, everyone. Keep being creative. Have a wonderful week and pay all those good things forward. Until next time, it is hooroo from me.